Hey everyone, this is Andy Hall. You're watching an episode of The Best Advice Ever. The Best Advice Ever is the show where awesome people come on and talk about the best advice they ever heard. With me today is film director, Guru. I'm going to use the word guru. Joe Badon.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. It's great having you on, brother. So I'm just gonna do the laziest introduction ever and just read your bio. Joe Badon is a filmmaker, illustrator, and musician from New Orleans, Louisiana. He's written and directed 2 feature films, Sister Tempest in 2020 and The God Inside My Ear in 2018. He's illustrated storyboards for a number of films, including Keanu, 2016, and I always butcher this name, Desiree, thank you, 2015. Joe has also written and illustrated a number of comic books, including Terra Kaiju and The Man with 10,000 Eyes. Joe Badon.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. We just spoke the other day. It was like this literally a second ago.
It was just the other day because you're doing this Kickstarter.
Yes, and I appreciate that you're having me back on. I really, it's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So, how's the film world doing in New Orleans these days?
It's doing well. I've always been kind of an outsider to the film world because, really I was an artist and didn't really have any connections. So it's cool because over this probably last year, I've been networking with local talent and crew and cast more than I ever have. But I've been doing films for about 4 or 5 years now. Sure. So it's really neat to truly integrate into the local film community. And yeah, it's great. Things are starting to shoot again down here. The pandemic is, hopefully this new variant's not going to F everything back up again, but things are finally opened. And I was just on a set a couple days ago. I was not actually working on it, but I was passing through it. So
cool.
There's lots of things happening right now. So it's exciting.
It must always be interesting to see how other people work, see what their workflow is like, what their process is.
Absolutely. And everybody has a different way to do it. I'm strictly about getting every storyboard made and really following pre-production boards and concept. You have plenty of directors that don't use any storyboards at all, which is wild to me. I know Werner Herzog's something. There's some sort of semi-famous quote about if you're a pussy if you use storyboards, which is just crazy. I don't even get it. So yeah, everybody has their own way of doing things, and I think that shows you how much of this is an art form and not it's not math. It's right. Something that everybody can interpret in their own personal way on how to create. And so that's exciting. I do a lot of pre-production before I get into even shooting. And then there's even more in post-production. I try to keep my hands in it as much as possible. And some filmmakers might be more hands-off. I know some filmmakers don't do anything during the editing process. They let the editor take over and completely. And that blows my mind because the editing's really half the film. I can't remember the name of the director, but he did the Florida Project. Mm-hmm. And he said editors should get directing credit as well, because they're picking out the best acting moments. They're making all the choices for everyone to see. Indeed. So I like to keep myself as hands-on as possible because I want people to feel my fingerprints throughout the film.
Sure.
So
wise words. Now that we're talking about wise words of wisdom, what's the best advice you ever heard?
I thought about this a lot. and I don't think I've ever really had very good advice. That's why I feel like I'm 44 and like just trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life.
Mm.
So I figured it out. I figured out it's it's the worst advice I ever heard, that I did the opposite. So
This is wow. Okay, this is great.
that's what I'm gonna do. Um, I was we have talked about before. I was a minister
Mm.
for about 12 years, and I was in the ministry for 16 years, and that is like conservative, charismatic, like holy roller churches. And one thing that was drilled into my brain during ministry was to never quit.
Mm.
And that's the worst advice I've ever had in my life. And I really took it to heart for a long time. And I'm someone who's extremely faithful to begin with. Like, I will be faithful to a fault.
Mm.
And so I take things. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something for longer than I should. And so I was in the ministry way too long. I did quite a few things in my life longer than I ever should have. And so now in the second half of my life, I'm realizing that is the worst advice that I could ever take, is to never give up. Like, there's something about giving up sometimes, about like going, you know what, this road is not taking me the way I should go, and to like stop and change direction, and it's okay. But like for me, I deal with a lot of shame, in all aspects of my life. If I feel like I'm making a wrong decision, I'm like heavily dealing with shame about it. And so stopping something and kind of turning and changing direction has a lot of shame kind of attached to it, because you're like, oh, you quit. You're a quitter now for stopping what you're doing. And I'm just kind of finally realizing, especially when you get to the second half of your life, you kind of feel like you're running out of time.
No, yeah.
So you're like, I don't have time to like waste my time on something that's not going to be profitable or fruitful in my life. I'm talking the very preacher talking. I still have all the Christianese that kind of run through my head. But yeah, so it's kind of like, realizing that I don't have to go in the same direction for too long to realize it's not working, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm the worst advice I can take is I'm learning from it. I'm learning that I don't have to keep going in one direction if it's not working,
I think that's brilliant, because a lot of the time our culture tells us not to quit, keep just plugging forward. And that is detrimental to a lot of people.
Yes. I did comic books too for about a decade, and I should have probably quit comic books a lot earlier than I did as well. But once you get into like the comic book world, it's a very similar mindset. Everybody is really struggling, and all the artists and creators are all telling each other, don't quit. You just keep going. Look at like, the Ninja Turtles. Those guys like, did it out of nothing. And they, and they're all talking about these like lottery moments that the very few people have, and then they're like, it's not about making money. It's about, the art, which they're absolutely right. But there does come to a place where everyone should assess their lives and go like, is this something I should keep going, keep doing, or is this becoming kind of a detrimental thing to me? Yeah. So yeah, it almost feels like it comes from that old Christian Protestant work ethic that I think America was kind of like built around. where it's like, yeah, just keep working in the fields, you know, and it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't be working in the fields, but you know, anyway.
Right. It's an article of faith, right? A lot of people treat it as an article of faith. If you keep doing the thing that you're doing, then eventually it'll pay off. And that's just not true.
Right. Yes, exactly. Now, if you look around and you go, I'm okay with this, I'll keep doing what I'm doing and I don't have to succeed, or I don't have to feed my family or whatever. That's fine. If that's like, it's just going to be a wonderful hobby. And that's great. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we need to stop having, you know, these delusions of grandeur and just put ourselves in reality and go, is this working? And am I okay with it? And if both those answers are no, then maybe I should change direction, you know? And
it sounds like you should ask yourself those questions. I don't know how regular it should be, but it shouldn't be like once every decade or so.
Yes, and I'm somebody who will do that like once a decade, and I'm trying to do that less.
Right.
I'm trying to stick to maybe like every 2 to 4 years instead of every like 10 years, you know. So
that was incredibly wise and succinct too, Joe. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And, you know, I think we're just going to tie things up right here because it is such a perfect little present for people. There's a bow on it. Where can people find you online? And talk about your Kickstarter for a minute too.
Sure, absolutely. So we've got like 3 or 4 days left on this Kickstarter. It's for a short film that I'm doing called The Wheel of Heaven. It's very strange, very surreal. If you like David Lynch or Alejandro Jodorowsky or Ingmar Bergman, this kind of stuff, that's the kind of stuff that we're doing. And this new short film is called The Wheel of Heaven. So if you're interested in checking it out, you can go to wheelofheaven.com. That will redirect you to the Kickstarter. Or you can go to Kickstarter and look up Wheel of Heaven. Besides that, if you go to Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter and look up Joe Badon or look up Wheel of Heaven, or look up like my other films, Sister Tempest, God Inside My Ear, you can check out those things as well. And lastly, joebadon.com, JoeBadon. That's my director stuff. So you can check out my trailers and my director reel and stuff like that. So,
well, Joe, I wish you the best, brother.
Yes. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. It's always fun talking with you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for watching this episode of Best Advice Ever.